to my channel. My name is Deidra, and today we're going to be talking about a real housewife situation. And this is the story, an infamous story in Charlotte, North Carolina, about the Carolina Panther Fred Lane and his wife Deidra Lane. She was the typical housewife, yet her housewife story, I don't know if it will be on TV per se, because this has a tragic ending that almost leaves you questioning, was she a helpless wife or was she a black widow? So make sure you comment, like, and subscribe as we get into the case of Fred Lane and Deidra Lane. Now, Deidra Lane was actually born in Columbia, South Carolina in 1975. She came from a privileged family, and people have stated that Deidra was very vivacious, A-type personality, kind of a wild child. She almost didn't finish high school, in fact, and she also had a child named Grant. Now, even though she had a child at a very young age, she was never a struggling mother. Like I stated before, she came from a very privileged family, and she was a daddy's girl. Her father made sure that she had everything she ever wanted. He paid for her apartment, her car, as well as her college tuition. In 1997, she ended up moving to Charlotte with her good friend, Natasha. And Natasha actually worked at what is known as Wells Fargo, but back in the day, it was called Wachovia. Now, not only was Natasha one of her closest friends who she moved to Charlotte with, but she was the main reason why she fell in love and met the Carolina Panther, Fred Lane. Now, Fred Lane went to Lane College, which is a HBCU in Tennessee. He actually was a walk-on and had the opportunity to actually walk on and be a player on the Carolina Panthers team. Now, Fred and Deidra's relationship was like love at first sight. It happened very, very fast. And the only person who actually attended the wedding was Deidra's best friend, Natasha. In fact, Fred Lane's family did not even know about the marriage at first. Now, being that Deidra Lane had just married Fred, people often speculated why they rushed to get married so soon. But just keep in mind that Deidra kind of had her own money because she came from a very affluent family. So if you wanted to labor as a gold digger, I don't think that would probably be the case because she kind of was established already. Now, even though Deidra came from a very affluent family and she was now married to the successful Carolina Panthers player, she did not hesitate in spending money. One time she showed up to a game with $20,000 in cash. Can you imagine somebody walking to a game and they literally had $20,000 in cash on them? And then when she had her second child, which was Fred's first child, their daughter, that is when she quit her job and truly became a housewife. And they actually moved to the suburbs of Charlotte called Matthews, North Carolina. Now, after the arrival of their child, their daughter, it was speculated that they would get in fights and arguments all the time. And then in 1999, 2 years later, he was to be traded to the Indiana Colts. Now, there was one time where Deidra did have to call the cops because their fights got really heated. She ran to a neighbor's house and Fred had ran after her, taking the necklace off of her neck and cutting her. 4 months later, we would soon realize that Fred Lane's life would come to an end after a tragic altercation. Now, the story goes that Fred Lane had entered the house. They began to argue. Deidra begins to argue. Fred begins to argue. She claims allegedly that he began to try to choke her. In the struggle, she grabs a shotgun and aims first at his face. Then she shoots him again in the back, which ultimately ends his life. Now, when the cops come, there is only one mark on Deidra, and she only claims that the only pain that she had was in her shoulder. Now, Deidra claims this was self-defense. She had no other choice but to take his life. It was either her life or his. But as the cops came to the scene, they realized that it might actually have been an ambush. So his keys were still in the door when they came to the crime scene. And his bag, his duffel bag, was lying in the foyer. So he hadn't even taken a few steps before this altercation had happened. Now, the story might be changed, so I'm just gonna lay this also information out that I found. So the first shot was actually in his chest. He spun around because of the harsh impact of a shotgun. He began to crawl on the floor, and that is where she aimed at his head. Now, throughout the investigation, there was actually findings that Deidra was in fact the one who had been abusing Fred. Multiple Carolina Panthers players had come forward stating that it was Deidra who had left marks on him, that she was spending money, that he wanted to end the marriage but did not know how. And when he was traded to the Indiana Colts, he thought this would be the perfect opportunity to finally end and resolve the marriage. However, his life had came to an end before he could make that action. Also, the only reason why he had come to the house that day was before going to Indiana Colts, he had a motorcycle. And because Deidra had ran through all the money, he needed to sell his motorcycle, which was still at the house. So when going back to the house to get this one final item, that is when his life ended. Now, Deidra was charged with murder and she had a bond of $100,000. However, good old daddy's girl, he actually paid the bond for her to get out of jail. However, less than a month, she was placed back in jail. And it wasn't for the murder. It was in fact because she was part of another investigation of a bank robbery. And you know what bank it was? It was the bank that her best friend worked at. It was a bank robbery investigation in connection with her friend, Natasha. In 1998, an unidentified woman had actually stolen $40,000. And if you look closely at the actual footage, the image, the unidentified woman was in fact Deidra. Now, why would Deidra want to steal money? At this time, she was married successfully to an NFL player. She had a father, and she had an affluent family who had an enormous amount of wealth. So why would she do that? Why would she need to get in this type of trouble? And also, I want to note that the bank teller who is actually being held up for robbery was her friend, Natasha. And this time, Deidra was not able to make bail at all. So she had to stay in the actual jail. And unfortunately, their brother friends begin to fold. Natasha actually sold out Deidra. She actually claimed that it was Deidra's idea the entire time. She made up this whole conspiracy. And unfortunately, this was not the first time Deidra had actually did a bank robbery heist. She actually had tried to commit this act multiple times previously. And so the federal judge actually found her guilty and charged her with 4 months in prison. However, she had did time served. Now going back to the actual murder case of Fred Lane. Like I was saying, police was getting all of their information together, and it was revealed that she had actually taken out a $5 million insurance policy on Fred Lane. In August 2003, the DA offered her a deal, which she could not refuse. She actually pled guilty to manslaughter in the hopes that they would drop the charges of murder. So she was sentenced to just 8 years in prison, and she was actually released in 2009. So what I want to know is, she paid her debt to society, and she is out right now living, a citizen, still in North Carolina. Do we forgive her? Do we let her continue to go on, and hopefully she has learned her lesson? 8 years for murdering someone when other people get long football years. Is it fair? And actually, currently, she actually works at a kiddie college. There has been actual complaints about should she be working with children due to her previous crimes. No, she didn't hurt children, but she did take someone's life. Is it fair that she is able to live a new life and try to restart her life by working, and even if it means with children? What I want to know is, what does it say about society? We want people to go to jail, pay for their crimes. We want to rehabilitate criminals, make sure they have opportunities to come back in the real world. But the minute they get an opportunity in the real world, we want to take it from them. We want to limit their opportunities, even though they have paid their debt to society. With this actual case, I want you all to understand that yes, Deidra did not have to go through this ordeal. But I think it speaks notions to the person she is. Who knows, maybe mental health was part of the issue. Maybe greed was the issue. But do we give her another opportunity to advance and succeed in society? Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Definitely subscribe. I want to keep making videos for you, about us, for us. Until next time.